All right, let's get right into it. When I say Westminster Abbey, what pops into your head? Probably royal weddings, right? Coronations, this absolutely massive, beautiful Gothic church. And yeah, you're not wrong. But that's just scratching the surface. It's so much more than a building. Think of it like a thousand-year-old storybook of British history, where every single page is carved out of stone. And that really is the key, isn't it? I love this quote from Gerlinda, who's the visitor experience manager there. She says, "You're not in a museum looking at history behind glass. No. Here, you are literally standing where history happened. You're walking in the footsteps of kings, queens, poets, scientists. It's history you can actually feel all around you." So what is it that makes the Abbey so incredibly unique? Well, it all starts with its official status. See, it's not a cathedral, and it's not your average parish church. It's something else entirely. It's called a royal peculiar. I know, it's a funny name, right? But what it means is pretty simple. The Abbey answers directly to the reigning monarch. Not a bishop, not an archbishop, just the king or queen. And this really special status, it was set up by none other than Queen Elizabeth I, way back in 1560. She basically cemented this incredibly personal link between the crown and the Abbey, and that link is still just as strong today. And believe me, this relationship goes way back. The whole story kicks off around 960 AD with some Benedictine monks on a little piece of land called Thorny Island. Fast forward to 1065, and you've got King Edward the Confessor building his great stone church. Then, in 1245, King Henry III starts this massive project to rebuild it in the jaw-dropping Gothic style we know and love today. Of course, then you've got Elizabeth I making it a royal peculiar, and eventually, in 1987, it gets the recognition it deserves as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Just think about that. 1,000 years of history, all in one place. So, of course, the Abbey's biggest claim to fame is probably as this grand stage for all things royal. It's the backdrop for the biggest celebrations and the most solemn moments of the monarchy. And get a load of this number, 40. Since William the Conqueror was crowned here on Christmas Day all the way back in 1066, a grand total of 40 reigning monarchs have had their coronations at the Abbey. That is an unbroken chain of history stretching back almost a millennium. It's just wild. And right at the center of it all is this pretty unassuming wooden chair, the Coronation Chair. Now, it might not look like much, but let me tell you, this is the oldest piece of furniture in the entire country that's still being used for the exact job it was made for. It's been a silent witness to over 700 years of history. And oh boy, if this chair could talk, it's had a pretty wild life. It was made back in 1296 by Edward I, specifically to hold the Stone of Destiny. It used to be all fancy, decorated, and gilded, but over the centuries it's been used. It's actually covered in graffiti from schoolboys in the 18th and 19th centuries. Even Oliver Cromwell sat in it when he was made Lord Protector. And during World War II, they had to pack it up and ship it out to Gloucester for safekeeping. Seriously, this chair has seen it all. But the Abbey isn't just for new beginnings. It's also the nation's most sacred final resting place. I mean, it's basically a vast city of the dead for Britain's most historic figures. We're talking more than 3,300 people buried or commemorated inside its walls. Just think about that. That includes 18 monarchs, a ton of prime ministers, military leaders, and some of the greatest scientists who ever lived, like Isaac Newton, Charles Darwin, and Stephen Hawking. Which kind of makes you wonder, right? You've got all these royals and politicians and generals. So how on earth did a poet end up getting buried among all these kings in the first place? Well, believe it or not, it was a total accident. The famous Poets' Corner, it all started with Geoffrey Chaucer. But here's the twist. He wasn't buried here in 1400 because he wrote the Canterbury Tales. No, he got the spot because of his day job. He was the king's clerk of works, which basically meant he was the project manager for royal buildings, including the Abbey itself. And that job came with some great perks, like an apartment and burial rights. It wasn't until almost 200 years later that another poet, Edmund Spenser, was deliberately buried near him, and that's when the tradition we now call Poets' Corner really began. But you know, for all the famous names carved into the stones of the Abbey, I think the most moving memorial of all belongs to someone with no name, no rank, and no known story whatsoever. I'm talking about the unknown warrior. After the horrific losses of World War I, an army chaplain named David Railton had this idea. Bring home one unidentified soldier to represent every single person who died. The whole process was so careful and so solemn. They brought 4 unknown bodies from different battlefields. Then an officer, totally at random, chose one. That one soldier, representing hundreds of thousands of others, was brought to the abbey and buried in soil brought over specially from France. The inscription on his grave is just one of the most powerful things you'll ever read. It says, "They buried him among the kings, because he had done good toward God and toward his house." In that moment, the nation gave this anonymous soldier an honor equal to royalty. Now, beyond all the incredible stories of the people inside, the Abbey itself is just a staggering work of art. It's an architectural masterpiece that has been blowing people's minds for centuries. It's one of the greatest examples of Gothic architecture anywhere in the world. And the whole point of Gothic design was to go higher and let in more light, to make a space that felt like, well, like heaven on earth. You can see all the classic features. You've got the pointed arches that draw your eyes up. You've got ribbed vaulting, creating this strong skeletal ceiling. And on the outside, the real genius move, flying buttresses. Think of them like an external skeleton holding the building up, which meant the walls could be way thinner and filled with these absolutely enormous, beautiful stained glass windows. And the absolute peak of all this amazing craftsmanship has to be King Henry VII's Lady Chapel. I mean, when it was finished in the early 1500s, people were so stunned they literally called it the Orbis Miraculum. That's Latin for the wonder of the world. And the glory of this chapel is its ceiling. Just look at it. It's a fan-vaulted ceiling, and it has these incredible lace-like stone pendants that just seem to defy gravity hanging down from the roof. It's truly one of the greatest treasures of European art, no question. So when you pull all these different threads together, the royal stage, the national memorial, the architectural marvel, it's so clear that the Abbey isn't some dusty old relic. It is a living, breathing piece of history. When you get right down to it, Westminster Abbey wears a lot of different hats. It's still very much a house of worship, holding daily services that anyone can go to. It's the royal stage for the biggest events in the nation. It's a national memorial, honoring the country's most important people. And of course, it's an architectural gem that's celebrated all over the world. And that kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about. The Abbey tells a story, the story of what and who a nation has cared about for over 1,000 years. And it really makes you wonder, if we were creating a space just like this today to tell our story for the next 1,000 years, who would we choose to put inside?